buckle up, America. I mean, the quarterback news is coming.
I'm buckling, yeah. I'm trying to get buckled here,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to get buckled.
It's fast and furious here on a Wednesday morning. And obviously, I think the big news, and you and I were just talking about it before we even began the show, is the news out of Denver. And I want to get your thoughts on that first and foremost, because it does appear Russell Wilson, at least for the rest of this year, has been shut down. They're going to go to Jared Stidham to get the start against the Chargers this weekend. By the way, Broncos now 3-point favorites to win that game over L.A., what do you make of this? Because we saw the Sean Payton and the Russell Wilson blow up on the sidelines, and you know how people read into things and, respect, disrespect, all those things. And then all of a sudden he gets shut down. I get it. The loss to the Patriots, feels like the playoffs are a foregone conclusion that's gone. But what do you make of why Sean Payton would make this decision now?
Well, I think he feels like, look, I've seen enough, right? And the shocking part about this decision isn't the fact that he's took him off the field, is that this line moves so dramatically, as if he were playing well. Like, as if he were playing well. Let's put things in context here. The Broncos are 28th in passing attempts this year, which means they don't want to throw the ball. But they have Russell Wilson. Why wouldn't they want to throw the ball? Why wouldn't they let Russ cook? Why wouldn't they throw it? They're 25th in yards, right? They are 21st in yards per attempt. Their passing game just doesn't execute. He's a one-look-and-go type guy. He hasn't really been the same player in a while, really in 4 years. I mean, last year in Seattle, he ran for 181 yards and the lowest first down total in his career. This year, they've gotten him to run a little bit more. He's actually run for first downs this year, which, he's got 38 rushes for first downs, which is a lot for him, considering that he had 33 last year. But to me, there's no plays in the passing game. There's really nothing. And when the game is on the line, how many more screens can you run? How many more ways can you get the ball to the receiver? See, this is one of the biggest misconceptions we have in professional football is we think the quarterback makes the throws. And sometimes that's true. But most times, the scheme makes the throws. Where the guy is open, you just throw the ball to him. Cover 3, they're going to play the out, throw the ball to the out. They're playing cover 3, run double seam. The receiver's wide open. They didn't reroute him. So it just takes a little bit of the scheme helps a lot of times. And what happens is when the player doesn't operate within the scheme, then all of a sudden the coaches get really frustrated. And, well, I didn't see it. He wasn't open. Go back to one of the greatest clips you'll ever see of understanding pro football is Phil Simms walks to the sideline, and Parcells says to him, Phil, the out's wide open. No, it was a little dirty, Coach. I didn't see it. Then he goes back out. He comes back to the sideline again. Phil, the out's wide. We got to throw the out. But he goes back, doesn't throw it. Parcells then says to Ron Earhart up in the press box, he's watching a different game than we're watching. And that's what happens to a lot of older quarterbacks. They're worried about the rush. They're worried about what's going on, and they don't see what the scheme is letting them do. And so for me, this really isn't a big deal. Like, he wasn't playing at a level that is conducive to his salary. Now, they can't get out of next year.
Right.
But I think what they want to be able to do is say, hey, somebody needs a quarterback. Somebody wants this. Come take Russell from us.
Now you look at it, boy, it just feels like you look at the Broncos season, the middle part of it, they win 5 in a row, feel like they're right back 6 out of 7, right? And they almost got the win in Houston, which would really have changed their season. If they could have completed that rally against the Patriots, maybe Russell's still the starter. They did go out and actively pursue Jared Stidham in the offseason. And I was talking about with our producer, Steph, before the show, Stidham at the end of last year here in the desert, I actually thought he played pretty well in that Niners game. Is this a look at Stidham for not to start next year? But what do you need to see from Stidham? But there's got to be a reason they went and got him.
Well, look, I think one of the reasons Josh McDaniels isn't a coach in Las Vegas anymore is because, when they let Carr go, they didn't re-sign Stidham.
Right.
Stidham actually played well for them. And so that forced him into the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, which this would prove to be really the downfall of that administration, is going after Garoppolo. Everybody wanted Carr out of the building, including the owner. I mean, that's a fact, right? I mean, everybody was ready to move on from Carr. The problem was they had the replacement with Stidham, or at least it looked like it, and they didn't sign him. They quibbled over a little bit of money, and the first day of free agency, Denver jumped in and signed him. So there's some element here of the kid being a good player. 5-star kid coming out of Baylor, highly recruited. You know, he's done some things. And the 49er game, he looked really good. The next week against the Chiefs, not so much. But look, here's the issue. Sean knows this. It's hard to score points when your quarterback average is 6.9 yards per attempt. Ask the New York Football Giants. That's all Daniel Jones has ever averaged is 6.9 yards per attempt. There's no down-the-field passing game. And when you don't have a down-the-field passing game, you can't make explosive plays. It's one of the issues with the Chiefs. Mahomes won't take the profits. He's looking for explosive plays down the field, and they're not there. And yet he won't adjust his game, or the Chiefs won't adjust their game to take in the completions. And so the system kind of breaks down. And so Sean's just simply saying, look, you know, I'm not getting anything out of a quarterback that I couldn't get out of Stidham. I might as well play Stidham and see what I have. Like we act like, oh my God, Russell wasn't playing well. He wasn't playing well. He wasn't playing poorly, but he wasn't playing to the level of the salary. This is the biggest issue in the NFL right now. It isn't that you are the quarterbacks, you got to have an elite quarterback. The issue is when you have a good player, you have to pay him like Deshaun Watson. You've got to pay him like Russell Wilson. You got to pay him this high number. And if they don't back up that high number, you're really messed up. And I think that's the issue here.
Yeah, because
look, what's going to happen with Trevor Lawrence? Are you paying him $50 million a year?
No, sir. No chance, right? And again,
what are you going to do?
Right, that's
what are you going to do?
That's the problem. Is that's kind of the going rates right now, and so you get stuck behind these contracts, like Denver is now stuck with. So you know, it's funny because right before we came on, and by the way, again, Broncos 3, the low total of 37.5 against Easton Stick and the Chargers, is that you go back to that trade with Denver and Seattle, and you know, my recollection was like, wow, Denver. They've got their championship window now with this great defense. But you kind of saw it differently, and maybe some of the other execs in the league saw it differently, right? That at the time, because we saw Geno Smith play a little bit for Russell when he had the gruesome finger injury, if we remember that, in the last year at Seattle, and that kind of gave a rebirth to Geno Smith. And now it looks like Denver's stuck at least for one more year. By the way, their win total, Michael, was 8.5. They were at 7-6 before this 2-game losing streak. Do you feel better or worse about that ticket if you had it at over 8.5 with 2 to play now that Jared Stidham's in and Russell is out?
I think everybody's instinct is to bet the Chargers now, and I'm not sure that's the right play because again, it always comes back to really this simple thing in football: why did we win and why did we lose? And if you believe that the Broncos won because Russ was playing well, you're not watching the same game I'm watching, right? You're just not. If you believe that they, you know, that's the thing. And Sean's basically saying that to you. He's saying, look, anybody, I could have gotten this amount of wins with anybody playing quarterback. And the frustration with him and the reaction on the sideline is because, look, we drew it up. You don't want to throw it. Like, that becomes really hard. That becomes very frustrating. And I've tried to put you in position where you can, all you've got to do is execute the offense. See, it's one thing. Purdy gets killed because he executes the offense.
Right.
Russ doesn't because he doesn't execute. Don't yell at Russ on the sideline. It's not nice. You know, it's like, seriously, like, what is it here?
That's the thing. It is absolutely amazing to me. And I'm looking at the particulars of Russell's contract going forward now. And Michael, you know this league better than most. Is somebody else going to kick the tires on Russell Wilson with 1 year left of that big deal? Like, or is this really, is this it? Like, are we looking at the end of the Russell Wilson era as a starting quarterback anywhere in the NFL?
Well, I think, look, somebody will kick the tires. Right. Now, I'm not saying Russ is a complete bust. I'm not. I'm just saying Russ isn't worth the money. But if Denver's got to pay it, there's certainly going to be a team that says, look, we'll take Russ off your hands. You know, we'll pay him 15 to 20, you got to pay the rest.
That's where that's going to go.
Rest. Yeah. We're not taking on the deal. We'll take Russ, but we're not taking on the whole deal. We'll take some of it, but we're not taking all of it. Right? I think that's the conversation. Look, one thing about this year, nobody wanted to trade for Matthew Stafford because he was damaged and old. Mm-hmm. And the Rams were trying to very aggressively. And Stafford came back, and he's playing really, really well right now, really well. And so he found himself again. So maybe that could happen with Russell, but I think what Sean's tried to do with Russell is manage him completely. We're going to run the football. We're going to be conservative. We're not going to let him turn the ball over, and he's got to run a little bit for first downs and see if we can put together 5 or 6 good plays. And they haven't been able to do that on a consistent basis.